Alright, so notaries are always asking on TikTok, Facebook groups. It's a common question that I see at least, I'm not even going to say once a day. Yes, minimum once a day, but I see it several posts because I'm a part of like several like notary groups. And a common question is, how should I price my notary business? And I'm often seeing that like in TikTok comments, people will ask me like, what should I charge? And that's what we're going to break down today. So some of my like real life experience, and hopefully it can help you figure out pricing in your notary business. So hello, I am Edith, your favorite purple haired notary with notable moments, and I am currently a notary in New Jersey. I primarily service Hudson and Essex County, and like I said, I'm just here to share my real life experience as a notary. 5 years, 5.5, since basically we are going on towards the end of the year. And so some things for loan signings and to help you grow your business with confidence. So if that sounds helpful, please like, subscribe, share with your friends. I'm gonna try to at least upload once a week so that we can have some tips for you guys. And if there's anything else that you want to know in regards to your notary business, please share. I'd love to like make videos and help out the notary community. All right, so I have my notes here, of course. So a lot of y'all gonna hate me for this, but a big reason why when you comment or ask what should I price and people say that depends on you, ultimately it does. It definitely always depends on you, because it's not a one size fit all answer. You can be in a rural area, and whereas like me, as you're watching this video, I live in the city, right? Like I live in the city, I don't live in the suburbs. And the people where I chose to service, it's the city, right? I wanted to charge a premium price, and so where are people that are gonna need premium things, and that's gonna be in the city. They tend to work from home, they don't want to go anywhere. I am targeting people like me, people who want to pay for a certain type of convenience, right? Like I did a short about this, and it was basically like Uber Eats, DoorDash, things like that. I am targeting people who want to pay for convenience. Uber Eats and DoorDash, I am not their customer, because I don't believe in paying that premium for food that I can pick up by myself, right? Like something that you can pay maybe like $10 for, you getting it from Uber Eats, that shit is like $30. What? No. I won't do that, right? And it's the same thing with your notary business. There are going to be some people who are going to look at the price, and which I tend to, the people that I service, they're like, this is such a great idea, I love this, and honestly, like it was such a deal, and then in my head I'm like, I should charge more, right? Because they thought it was such a deal. But again, I service the city. I'm going to luxury apartment buildings, luxury condos, I'm going up to the penthouse, I'm meeting business owners. Those are people who pay my prices, and that is who I was trying to service, and my prices reflect that. So take that into consideration. Like, who are you trying to service? You are running a business, not a charity. All right, so where do you live? Is it a city area? Is it a rural area? Take that. Like, if you're watching this video, who are you? Where are you servicing? And take that into account. How far are you traveling? What do you think it's worth your time? I think that people, when they're thinking about their pricing, they're like, I don't want to be like too expensive. But again, like, think about your time. The area that I service, which is downtown Jersey City, Hoboken, and like I said, the city areas, places that are closer to New York, are where I service. I live, depending on the time of the day, I live about 20 minutes from there. So, and then if there's traffic, depending on the time that I'm booked, so if we're thinking after school, so anywhere from like 3 to 5, if I'm booked in that time frame, it might take me an hour. And then if I want to save some time, that also means that I have to pay a toll, right? So I take that all into consideration in my pricing. So how far are you traveling? How far are you willing to travel? Think about how long it takes you to get to that area. You live there, you know, like how long it's going to take you in traffic, without traffic. I am taking all that into account, and also take into account what People are always asking, what should I charge? But what services have you decided to offer in your notary business? If you don't know, you also still can't figure out pricing if you don't know what you are offering in your notary business. So I offer everything under the sun. I do loan signings, so I do have my own direct clients that use me, realtors, title. I don't really have a lot of lender partners. I guess that really matters when we're doing like refis, because most people rely on title in regards to finding the notary, and then some agents who like control of their transaction and being able to have someone like at the drop of a dime to serve their client. Those are the type of realtors that use me, not the realtors who are just like, title's gonna do it. No, they are realtors who have control of their transaction and want to make sure that their client is has flexibility in when they're closing, so they just don't rely on the attorney and what title says. Pause. I love my Awala. Right, so I also offer estate planning. Oftentimes the attorneys will, the clients that find me, that I service, they tend to just get it. Their attorneys create the package, tell them to find a notary, and same deal. I'll have, because I am so close to New York, some people don't always, although they're visiting New York, they tend to stay in Hoboken, downtown Jersey City, places that are close to New York. Instead of paying those hotel prices in New York, they come to Jersey, sometimes get an Airbnb, and they may be closing a deal somewhere else, but they're on vacation in New York, but where they're really in Jersey. They'll call me. I'll do the loan closing for them, like I said, or estate planning, general notary work, and I have done a couple apostilles, which I do want to build on that business. So think about where you want to start. I started with loan closings just because I started during the pandemic. So loan closings, like, that was a boom. Rates were like 2%. I've seen lower, but the average was like 2-3%. So many people were refinancing, pulling out equity out of their homes, and also making purchases. And so there was just an influx in notary work. So that's where I started, and that's why I kind of like started there. And then as that slowed down over time, because rates went up, prices stayed where they were at, and the real estate closings slowed down. And that's when I got into like other different niches. And yeah, so make sure you know like what you want to do. I have so many videos on why you shouldn't start with closings, and that's really just because real estate closings reflect the real estate market, right? Like, if the real estate market is kind of slow and people get discouraged because they're like, oh, title already has their closers, because title might have 4 closers and that's all they need in rotation because real estate is slow. And then when real estate picks up, I still say continue, tell them to put you in their database, because you never know what can happen if real estate picks up and there's an influx and their 4 notaries are out doing work. They are going to need backup in their database. So it's okay to like be the backup. Just know that you're the backup. I do backup notarizations for, I think they're a commercial real estate firm, so they're always closing deals, but they have an in-office notary. I've never marketed to them, but my mailing notary address is down the block. And so anytime their notary is out, when she's on vacation, when she's sick, and then when the weather's really bad, they still have to close a deal. So I've gone to them several times where there's a snowstorm, their notary's out, when she's sick, and like I said, when she's on vacation, they still have deals to close. I get called. Is that like, is their business that they're giving me? Oh man. Is that paying my bills? Is that paying like my rent? No, but I am on their rotation. I do business with them maybe like 4 times a year, and that's how often I see them. They generally call me first, and then kind of like go from there. So basically, what may work in, I'm saying all that to say, what may work in my market for me might not work for you. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so what do I do? My pricing as a mobile notary. So I personally use a flat fee. I cover 2 counties. Do I go outside of those counties? Yes. But then I also charge extra. So let's use an example of when I was supposed to do a closing in Essex County, which is in my pricing, right? And I was scheduled to go there. When I called the signer said, this time is not going to work for us anymore. The docs were delayed all day. None of those things are my fault, right? The lender, for whatever reason, it took all day to get their documents together. I heard it was a nightmare. And the way they had the whole day lined up and scheduled out, it didn't work out that way. So they wanted me to basically meet them at home. And I had to go into 2 different places, and I had to go into a different county and I also had to pay tolls in order to be there somewhat on time now. So I reached out to the signing service that gave me the signing, who I work with often, and I let them know, hey, dynamics have changed. I'm gonna need an increase in my pay due to now I have to go to 2 locations and I have to pay tolls and I'm gonna sit there in traffic, right? So make sure you already have like those surrounding counties mapped out, time of day. Again, that's why I said, like, think about your time. Right, so you're gonna take your travel time into account, know how far you're going. Parking, right? If you're in a rural area, this might not apply to you because you just may be servicing people in their home, their offices, or like in rural areas, the offices may already have parking. But again, since I'm in a city, oftentimes the offices in Jersey City specifically, Hoboken, those high-rise office buildings don't come with parking. I'm gonna have to park in a parking garage. Hoboken, I may be able to find parking on the street, but that's also paid street parking, and that can vary. So I would have to pay for parking from anywhere from $2, depending on how long the appointment is. If it's like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I think it's about like $2 if we're talking about Hoboken. And let's say I can't find parking, I'm gonna have to go to a parking garage, and that can cost anywhere from like $10 to $15, again, depending on how long the appointment is. If it's like general notary work, something that's gonna be quick, sometimes I can park in a parking garage for free because they may have like up to 30 minutes for free. And so if I can be in and out within 30 minutes, then I didn't have to pay for parking. But I always have to take that into account. I don't want to, because some people will, it depends on this, it depends on that, and there's tons of add-ons. I don't want to have to do that all the time when I'm like on a phone trying to give someone pricing, right? I want to know what the job is. Is this a loan signing? Is this an estate plan? Is this general notary work? Like, what are we doing? And I have set pricing for each of those. I don't want to have to try and calculate the mileage unless it's outside my cover zone, like, right? The counties that I cover, if it's outside of that, then I have to think about, okay, what's the additional mileage, the time. I think about my time more in a per hour situation than by like the mileage. How much longer is this going to take? So yeah, so I take parking into account, the type of notary job, and my time spent with the client, right? A general notary work will generally take me, depends on what it is. The fastest notary job that I've ever done has been like 5 minutes in and out. And then sometimes general notary work, if they have lots of papers, I can still be there for an hour. So if you undercharge and the time that you're spending, like, that's not great. So I'm gonna use an example, right? When I first started, I was charging $40. And what I think is so hilarious is that, like, when I was charging $40 to leave my house, because I was doing like everyone else, reading Facebook comments, and people were like, oh, I only charge $40. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to be too expensive. And people still told me I was too expensive at $40. And with the place that I service, like I said, I service downtown Jersey City, Hoboken, which can be 20 minutes. And if there's traffic, it can be an hour in traffic away from me. So let's say $40. That might be, we'll use the 20 minutes. So it'll be an hour round trip, right? Let's say I had to pay for parking. So I paid for parking. Let's do $5 I paid for parking. And then thinking about mileage, Hoboken is about 7 miles away. yeah, 7 miles away from me, so that's 14 miles in total. That rounds up, I think, the for taxes, I think it's 75 cents a mile times 14 miles, so that's round trip, so it's about $10, $11. Okay, so that's about $11. We paid $5 for parking. That's $16. So we have 40 minus $16 is $24. That's how much I would have made off the notarization. That's not including gas or anything like that. That's not including my time spent in the car, anything like that, my time spent with the client. So let's say I was there for an hour. I get not bad making $25 an hour, but I also didn't quit my job to make $25 an hour. You know what I mean? Like, that's not running a charity. So that's how much I would have made. And some of you guys are taking loan closings at $40. That's something that I didn't have to print for anything. So you're printing 300 pages. I'm definitely not doing the math on that. Toner, paper, like I use Quill to get my paper. I think it's about like $35 for 10 reams of paper. It is $100 and change for a box of toner. I don't go through them like crazy, but thinking about printing all of those pages, going down, this is definitely going to be in a negative if you're taking a loan signing at $40. My loan signings were never $40. So me saying that I started charging at $40, that was just for general notary work. And once I upped my prices to think about, because I saw, damn, like I have to pay for parking, I'm spending all this time, I'm not really making any money here, and I immediately up my prices, right? Like, you have to take into account the time and energy that you're spending driving there, the time with the client, and then your expertise and your training, right? So I account for all of that, like, in my fees. And then sometimes, right, sometimes I also contract other notaries. So imagine if I'm charging $40 for a closing, can I pay another notary and then also still make something off of it? No, I can't. That can't pay my bills. I can't pay another notary if I'm charging $40, right? So I try to account for in my pricing, if I have to contract another notary and I still want to pay the notary, again, depending on the work, depending on the type of notarization that needs to happen, I need to make sure I'm able to pay them accordingly, and then still also have some money for myself. I usually give them the majority of the fee because they did the work, the travel, XYZ. So yeah, so I do make sure that my pricing includes having to pay another notary. So that's built into my model of my pricing. What can I pay to make it fair? Make sure that my parking is covered, my time, efforts, yada yada yada. All right, because I have tolls to consider. If that's not something that's for you, then okay. So newer notaries, the question is, where do I start? So here's some ways, which I've already said, but here are some ways that you can figure it out, right? Number one, always check your state guidelines. Always, always, always check your state, because you might be listening to me and you're in Georgia, and I'm not saying that this is Georgia, but I think that there are some states that does not allow you to add like travel fees to what you do. So what I'm saying just might be moot to what you're listening to if you live in a state to where you can't charge travel fees, administrative fees, yada yada. And if that's in your state, you can be listening to me and that means absolutely nothing to you because you can't do what I'm doing in your state. So make sure that you check your state laws and see what you can charge, how you can, your travel fees, stuff like that. And also make sure you're checking your local market. What market are you serving? So what helped me bump up my prices was, I'm like, okay, I'm doing downtown Jersey City, Hoboken. I'm going to look up notaries in that area and I'm going to see what they're charging, right? And I saw what they're charging. I was like, wow, I'm really undercharging here and still not getting any business. And so that's what I thought was insane. Once I made my pricing comparable to the notaries in the area that I was servicing, I started getting more business. I don't know what that's about, but I started getting more business. When I was the cheapest notary, I didn't get as much business as when I became comparable to people in my area. I checked their website, I saw like what they were doing, what they had up, and I like to have my information there. Even though people still call me, I like to have the information of like how much my services are, so that people can either see it, read it, and if it doesn't fit them, they don't need to call me. We don't need to have that conversation. Calculate your costs. Again, thinking about how far do you want to go. I cover the whole county, right? The county I think is about like 20 miles long. I never really have to go that far, but I cover the whole county and then a second county as well. So make sure that you're considering how much you're paying in gas to get down there. So however far you're willing to go, if that's 15 miles, you're only willing to go 15 miles. Think about how much time you're spending to travel that 15 miles. What does that time spent in those areas? How long does it take you to get there in traffic, without traffic, so that it's already accounted for whether you are taking 5 minutes to get there or now because of traffic it's an hour. It doesn't matter. You're accounting for that time regardless. Parking. So if you have to pay for parking in the area that you're servicing, please add that in there, whether it's street parking or you have to park into a parking garage like myself. All that time needs to be accounting for. And then try to decide if you want to do an hourly or a flat fee. I decided to do more of a flat fee option versus an hourly, just because I feel like I can't predict how long something is gonna go, so I rather just account for that in general, and then kind of go from there. Or yeah, and then some notaries also do like a per mile situation, so they would calculate so everybody pays a different price, right? Like if you see someone who's 5 miles away from you, they're gonna charge different from if they have to go like 15 miles, right? And I just didn't want to go with that model, just because if people sometimes call me and if they're 2 miles away from me, they're going to pay the same price as someone who's 15 miles away from me. I don't have time to sit there in my car and be like, oh, okay, you're 2 miles away from me, that costs X, and yada, yada, yada. Because in real life, when someone's calling me on the phone, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to sit here and people like, oh, I have a spreadsheet that I put in all the information, it calculates the paper. That's not the reality of how my appointments get booked. I'm often not home. Today, I'm also a realtor. Today, I was doing my rental. I had rental open houses, and I got booked for a notary appointment while I was doing those open houses. So in the reality, I don't have time to, oh, I'm going to calculate how many pages I'm printing, how much toner that equals, how many miles I have to go, and then time spent. That's not the reality of my life, so that doesn't work for me. If that's the reality of your life and how your notary business is going, that you can pull up a spreadsheet and input all the information and the mileage and how far you're going and how much you're printing, if that's the reality of your life, then do that. I prefer the flat fee model. It's just easier. So you're 2 miles away from me, 15 miles away from me, y'all are paying the same price. Point blank period. I don't care. If that doesn't suit the consumer's need, the consumers can go, you can go walk to UPS, right? Or find another notary. And then, as I mentioned earlier, right, I started charging $40, realizing that I wasn't conducive to my business, and up my pricing. So don't be afraid to start somewhere, because you're like, I guess I feel comfortable with this. This is how I want to start. And then you realize, oh my God, like I'm using this much time and energy. It's not worth that. I need to up my price. It is okay to start somewhere and then realize that's not working for your business and up your price. It is okay. Your first rates aren't going to be the rates that you have forever, and most of the time people won't really notice anyway, especially if you're getting business from like Google My Business. They won't often notice. And sometimes you might have like people that will use you again. I had someone who used me 4 years ago and just used me again. My price has increased since the first time he used me. Not a big deal, right? Like, you like my services, you're going to use me again, and you're going to pay that price increase. So if you're in a city market, I think that of course you're gonna have higher prices because you have the tolls, traffic delays, parking fees, and so your fees should definitely reflect what that looks like. And if you're a rural area, you may have longer distances to go, so mileage might be more important to how you're pricing your business. All right, so just make sure that your pricing works for you, right? So pricing is definitely very personal. So that's why when you go into these groups and people say, oh, it's on you, it depends, that's why it depends. Like, y'all get really upset that there's no concrete answer, and that's just because there's not. What works for me might not work for you, right? Like, I was taking advice of people who are living in more rural areas and charging $40, and they were okay with that. Meanwhile, I had parking tolls eating up my fees, right? That I shouldn't have been taking advice from somebody that doesn't live the same lifestyle, would have the same commute as me, right? So that might, so you won't get it perfect overnight, and that's okay. My business has changed so much within the past 5 years. Like, it's not concrete, it's not set in stone. Everything is going to be trial and error. So just build a structure that makes sense for your lifestyle, your market, and your goals, right? We're all working towards something. We're not here to like just run businesses all willy-nilly. Okay, so yes, so if that helped you, please drop a comment. Let me know how you're gonna decide to set your prices on your notary business. I would love to hear some of the strategies that maybe you found helpful from this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your other notary friends, and let's try to figure out this pricing together. If you do have additional like questions, again, please feel free to put it down in the comments, send me a DM. But until next time, I hope to see you in my next video. All right, keep building that notary business, y'all. Bye.